I'm Richard Horton, and this is my presentation on Theodore Roosevelt, and in particular on his speech that we covered in Module 4. This is not my first class with Dr. Busby, and generally I have a much better microphone whenever I record these things, so hopefully it doesn't sound too bad for you. Anyway, the actual name of the speech is Citizenship in a Republic, though it's often referred to simply as The Man in the Arena due to its oft-quoted passage. Theodore Roosevelt gave the speech on April 23rd, 1910 in Paris, France. At this point, he had been a former president for about a year and had been giving speeches in Europe, and this one in particular was met with great enthusiasm, as you can tell by its prevalence today. So just as an aside, I'm pretty fascinated with Theodore Roosevelt, which is why I chose this speech to make a presentation on. I even actually named my youngest son after him. I just think he led a really interesting life, and he was a really interesting political figure as well. And I mean, we've all read the speech and we've listened to it a bit of lecture on it from Dr. Busby, and so I kind of want to focus my presentation on things that we haven't really covered in class, just to shed some extra light on the material and to understand where the speech is coming from. I think it's important to understand the man giving it, and Theodore Roosevelt was definitely an interesting man. He was a man of action. He was always doing something. He was always preoccupied with something. He has, lots of famous exploits from before he was president in the Badlands and as the leader of the Rough Riders during the Spanish-American War. He had a lot of exploits during the presidency and also after it. As an older man, he explored an uncharted river in the Amazon. He just had a very eventful life, and he was kind of one of those larger-than-life personalities. So I think you can get a lot of that from this speech. You see a lot of those qualities in his speech and what he has to say. So this is the famous Man in the Arena quote, which you have already read, I'm sure, from the reading. And I think this quote really exemplifies what Theodore is driving for in his speech, and really what he ascribed to basically all of the time in his regular life. He was definitely a person who went out and did things and wasn't someone who just sat back and talked about them. So yeah, and this is a great quote. A lot of people really like this quote. Actually, kind of unfortunately, in my opinion, I think Miley Cyrus actually has a tattoo of it. I think I read that while I was doing some research for this presentation, but that's neither here nor there. So for the speech as a whole, there are a huge amount of topics that it touches on for how long it is. And on this slide, I've listed a few of the topics that he seems to spend some time on. All of these topics revolve around citizenship and being a good citizen in a republic like the U.S. or France. And really the title of the speech tells you exactly what, it's about citizenship in a republic, how he views citizenship and how citizens should behave and what qualities they should exhibit to make a republic successful. So he discusses the importance of citizens in a republic as opposed to an autocratic form of government where the function of the state relies on having a good and talented leader, as opposed to a republic or democracy that relies on talented citizens to keep the motor moving. So we'll review some quotes from a few of these topics that I selected and kind of find interesting. The speech as a whole is pretty massive to dissect, but so here's one of the topics: duty to one's nation, and you can see a few of the quotes that I picked out from the reading. that kind of have to kind of touch base on this topic. So, yeah, just a few quotes that deal with a person's duty to pull their weight for the country, and a lot of these touch base on wealthy people using their wealth for purposes that benefit society, people that are able to working and taking pride in doing so, and people being prepared to defend the nation should the circumstances call for it. So really just people being willing to put some effort into the betterment of the country, and everyone kind of doing their part. If you want to read these quotes or the quotes in the next few slides, you can just pause it. That way this video doesn't take any longer than it needs to. The other topic that I found really interesting in this speech, actually, I was kind of surprised to read it in there, was about procreation. And once again, here's a few quotes on that. But Theodore Roosevelt believes that procreating is essential to every good citizen capable of doing so. Obviously, growing in number has an effect on the economy and on the military, both in terms of available manpower and other things. And in this speech, Roosevelt iterates that purposefully not having children is an act of selfishness, and he thinks that it should be condemned by other people. So everything that he talks about in his speech goes back to this one central idea that people ought to be good citizens, and that in being good citizens, they will ensure the success of the Republic. In the speech, he refers to both the United States and France, and often compares and contrasts the two nations in different ways. So he encourages action, usefulness, and practicality. And if you do not exhibit these qualities, then he does not think that you're a good citizen and you should be condemned by your peers. I personally find his ideas on citizenship quite interesting and very relevant today, actually. I think that today we've put more emphasis on individualism, which has led to a certain degree of incredulity toward our nation collectively. And according to Theodore Roosevelt, this is at the peril of our nation, and to me it goes against the purpose of a collective body, community, or society. But anyway, I hope you enjoyed the presentation, and we'll leave with a better understanding of Theodore Roosevelt in a speech from Module 4 covering the Progressive Era. Really, the speech is littered with memorable quotes to me. And it's really interesting, and it's just so vast in scope. But some questions for you guys. One, how do progressive politics from the Progressive Era differ from progressive politics today, and how are they the same? I think it's kind of interesting to contrast those two because the time, so much has changed from now and then. How does Theodore Roosevelt's rhetorical style contrast with Abraham Lincoln's? I found this speech very fascinating. I found some of the speeches that we read from Lincoln very fascinating, but I also think they're way, way different in their approach to what information they offer people. And so I just found that contrast kind of interesting. And finally, number 3, in what ways is citizenship in a republic relevant today? All right, thank you.